And then she went someplace to see about a room.
See the other room.
Yeah, she's going to be. So I'm sure she'll be with her.
Okay.
How many people do they expect?
Said at least 50. But you never know when they come.
Or you want me to do it once everybody's sitting to just hand to the people that are sitting? And then I'll put some in the back with the holy waters.
Yeah, let me get a little started and then I'll.
Do you really want me to stand up while you're talking? It's distracting.
Okay.
Why don't I wait till there's people sitting and then I'll leave extras, you know. Yeah, nothing like kind of people walking.
There's 70 there. Oh, that was something. 853.
Probably feels she's fending them off. She just had a look on her face like, I didn't do it. Sit in the back and I can see new people come in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
I know you will too.
Yeah, I couldn't. I don't need to fold down. These guys are both. I was wearing them both. I can take the minimum off. Yeah.
I was tempted to move her cage near the window so she could watch the birds. She's having a bird watching this morning.
You see any cool birds?
What was that?
Oh, I don't. Pigeons?
There was a black pigeon. The cat was looking at it out the window, and it saw the cat, so they're probably good friends right now. No, the car started to beep, 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 so somebody must have tried the door. And when I got down to her, she's in her cage looking at me like, I didn't do it.
Not me.
Not me.
Saturday?
Saturday. People are off.
Should be easy. We may go back a different one.
Mm-hmm.
We may go back a different one.
Oh. It was beautiful coming up in here.
Traffic is slowing 85 miles an hour. It keeps moving up.
I wonder how Darius did this morning. Report.
So, yeah, it was crazy. The guy gave me nuts. I was kind of waiting for you to get back. I was like, oh, it's taking a while.
I thought you did.
I know, but then I fell asleep. And then I woke up. I didn't get in until like 11:30 or something like that. And he was super confused. He's like, what are you doing? And I just like, I was in deep sleep. I was so tired. So we had this interaction. And then I had already taken out all my stuff. And it was just like, I was like, can I just sleep here?
I was very confused. He must have been. Community to our thing, and so called me. I figured you do another thing, and you cracked, you shot her. Sorry.
Good. I'm glad you didn't tweak.
No reason.
There's never a reason.
Twerk.
Yeah, twerk, but not.
Well, so yeah.
That was hilarious. That was the funniest thing ever. He didn't even recognize me at first.
Fun from last night.
Oh, yeah. 40 snap. Oh, you mean the email? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was great. Yeah. It's like, I was like, finally. I did too. I want to figure it out. I think it makes more sense to go in on something that's like reducing the HOA fees.
I'm going to, so I can.
Everything.
I did everything.
Never. Yeah. Can't either.
So
yeah, we get to. Yeah, that actually could be good. I wanted to send a picture, but I can't remember which site is which. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Those are one of a kind. I've seen a lot of waterfalls in my life. Those are special. To have like access to.
Oh, great, you're recording this. This is wonderful.
Yep.
Well, I'm Sharon Joy.
Sharon,
You
how
don't
are you?
remember me, but I'm one of your big fans, and I recommended Russell Collins to come again.
Well, that's good.
Yes, I did. In fact, Matthew last night, Matthew Fox talked about when he heard you speak at the earlier ICANN over in Orlando. You remember that years ago? But just so you know, we have paid attention.
I saw that.
And we are taking actions, and they're making a difference. And you and I will reconnect at the right time so I can fill you in. But we're thrilled that you're going to be telling us again, reminding us, because our vision is looking into 2175. And the seven, I know, but we have 7 generations that are going to be living. How do we want to support them into 2175? And you're going to tell us the reality.
You had it in your back.
No fake
right?
news.
Matt, real quick.
Matt?
This is Lynn. Is that yours?
Sharon, I think I met him years ago at the icon when he spoke.
Steve,
Let me-
but I started you instead.
Matt, let me interrupt you. This is the guy that you heard speak about the climate.
Oh, the scientist gentleman. Good to see you.
This is Lynn.
Pardon me?
This is Lynn.
Lynn. Oh, hello, Lynn. Thank you. Okay. You didn't sit on a phone, did you? Because I was sitting there last night and I lost my phone. Yeah, okay. No, yeah, the thing is, I probably had it off. So it's not going to rain. But anyway, did you speak
Well,
3 years ago too?
I brought him here to help me come back. Be Pachamama.
Yes, and my son my
I
grandson,
think it
that's
was Friday
Jonah,
night.
who's 20.
He tells
Hey, Jonah.
slides about Florida and showing chunks of Florida
Run around.
and underwater.
Probably
It was you? He's
I brought
having
him
coding
down
do
from
with
New
what we
Jersey
do
to
all
help
over.
me.
Okay,
So
well, we got a
he's
handout you can throw it away.
Douglas,
Oh, I was.
would you help me
Okay.
the ramrod to bring the cattle in?
Forget it.
Looking forward to your talk today for sure.
You're such a cowboy.
Let me get a little coffee.
I had a whole metaphor going here.
But to go turn off the program.
We'll have a conversation later about the consumer habits, okay?
You had it last night. They seem to be.
I do.
Yeah, I got a tap pass right now. I'll call the restaurant. If you don't have a phone to call them. You already called.
No, for the event, but that's good, yeah, for the event. Yeah. They're at the registration desk. You're gonna need, you have some coffee there. I'll bring you a cup of water later.
He's in the next room.
Dennis, I'll find it.
Yeah, he's short.
She was with us too.
Okay.
I'll just keep checking this. I understand.
That way, if the car starts slowing down, we can go.
Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting for the stragglers to come in and sit down. It's good to see you this morning. Thank you for coming back. The presentation last night from Matthew Fox was so wonderful for me. Sure was. That I slept like a baby last night. And I suppose, Matthew, you probably slept pretty well last night too after the long trip from San Francisco to get here. So we appreciate that very much. Thank you, Jonas. Appreciate it. Sure. Okay. Yeah. For those who don't know me, I am Russell Meyer, the executive of the Florida Council of Churches, and the convener for the Florida Interfaith Climate Actions Network Assembly. This is our 6th assembly. The first 5 were held from 2015 to 2019, all in Orlando. And then something about COVID-19 stopped us for a while. And we're very happy to get started again. The program that we've laid out, I think, is quite stunning. And it's not something I could have done on my own. So I want to take a moment and publicly thank some people. First of all, my partner in mischief, Sharon Joy Kleitch, and the Connection Partner. We have been partners in cosmic mischief for I'm at least 15 years, if not more. So, And I know that for many of you, she's harassed you more than I have. All in the name of love. All in the name of love. I also want to thank my dear, very dear friend, Susan Glickman of the Clio Institute. Susan and I have haunted the Capitol over the years, for many years. She's become wiser than me. She has stopped doing that. But our speaker today has come to us via Susan and the Clio Institute, and a couple of the workshops later on today, including Susan's on energy policy and Ellen Siegel on communications and her colleague she's brought with her, Alina, on climate conversations, etc. So the Clio Institute has been very foundational in helping us put together the program this morning. They're responsible for somewhere between a third and half of this morning's program, so I really want to thank them for that. And then along the way, there's another movement called the Florida Network, and many of you who are here are part of the Florida Network, and many of the workshops that we have come through the Florida Network. And I just want to say a word about the network, because it's open to anybody. We have phone calls that Sharon Joy organizes every Monday evening from 5 to 6:30 with a wide range of speakers, and devoted to being intentional about our consciousness for the well-being of all things, and the awareness of how we all inhabit a field of love. And the more we give attention to the field of love, the greater the worldly experience is for everyone. And so there's a wide range of topics that we explore. Sharon Joy does a great job at inviting people who I've never heard of to come and spend an hour and a half with us. And it's just well worth it. Who's coming up Monday night, Sharon Joy? Us. Because we're going to debrief this.
Yes.
So if you want to be on the email list, you need to send Sharon Joy an email, and she'll put you on the list. And her email address is kleitch@verizon.net. And Kleitch is spelled Kleitschsch. You gotta use all of those letters. I want to say an introductory remark about this year's assembly and its theme. Unfolding our cosmic intention for Earth, people, and the commons. Those three things go together, inseparably. Earth, people, and the commons. I believe the greatest threat we face today is the evil idea that everything should be privatized. And everything in my body just resists that wholeheartedly. I grew up as a child singing a particular psalm, Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. I don't own anything. I'm offered as a steward and a land tenure while I draw God's breath in this environment. That means the very breath that I draw has come through you as well, and vice versa. The very air we breathe is the commons. The water we drink is the commons. The land we walk on is the commons. The bacteria that keep me healthy share my body as a commons. Evil bacteria also gets in, and then I get sick, and then I need the commons of health care, right? And so the idea that everything should be privatized is strangling life on earth. Now, I'm not attacking economic systems here. I'm attacking a philosophy. And the way I believe to best attack that philosophy is to make compassion, empathy, and love central in all human decision-making. Because when we do that, we are embracing earth, people, and the commons. And so the theme of this assembly is for us to come into a fuller awareness and consciousness of the various kinds of ways in which we participate in the commons, and thereby give us courage and strength to be more vocal and clear-minded about how we resist the evil in this world, right? And so I just like to remind people that the breath they take, they did not create. It came from a source greater than us all, and as soon as you take it, you have to give it back. And that's what we define as living. So, as we gather and converse and talk and share, we are unfolding in our very gathering, in our very relationships, what the cosmic intentions are that are being worked through us. So that's the nature of the theme for this assembly. We were wonderfully initiated last night by Matthew. And this morning we're going to be hearing from one of Florida's leading climate scientists, Wanless, on the situation, the hot water we find ourselves in today. And I'll let him spend time talking about that. Just a couple of other announcements. Most of the workshops that follow after this are in the bulletin. There are a couple of different editions of the bulletin, and there's a couple of workshops that have changed, that haven't actually made it anywhere into print, but they are live on the website. So I just wanted to share with you what those are. Initially, after this presentation, we split up into three groups. One group stays here. This is Area A. One group goes to the lounge where we came in, called Horn Hall. That's Area B. One group goes upstairs. You can take the elevator, or there's a door in the lounge. It says stairs. That's Area C. And we've divided things up into tracks. You don't have to follow a particular track. But look at the program and decide where you would like to go. After this, Susan Glickman will be hosting in here on Florida's energy policy, the dirty story. The dirty story, in every way you can use that metaphor. And then Richard Montoya will be talking about self and how to fund solar. At one point we were talking about combining that with Julia Hurst's workshop, but we've split them out. And Julia's workshop on from sun on going solar. So the first one's on funding it, and the other one is getting it on your roof. That will be later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Also, the other major change is Orla's workshop on the non-proliferation of fossil fuels treaty will be at 3 o'clock, and it will be in here. So along the way, if you have particular questions, you can try and ask me, and I might be able to give you a reasonable answer. Lunch will be available from 12:30 to 2 o'clock upstairs. It's provided by the 15th Street Farm, which is our local urban organic farm, and they have a tour later on at 4 o'clock. The cost of that is $15. It's a turkey sandwich with a salad and dessert, and I don't think the turkey was grown on the farm, but almost everything else is farm to table. Or there are plenty of restaurants nearby. There's a sheet out front for doing that. At 4 o'clock, there are two tours that you do on your own. One is to go to the farm, or the other one is a tour with Wen Reese for the African American Heritage in downtown St. Pete. That is on a local tour bus, and it's $20 for the tour bus. Is that right, Jennifer? And then we'll come back here this evening at 7 o'clock. Gwen will tell the story of the gas plant district, and then we'll have a World Cafe to discuss that. Those of you who are not from St. Pete, let me just say a word. The gas plant district was once the thriving African-American downtown neighborhood that was dissembled many years ago, and it eventually turned up becoming the setting for the Tropicana baseball stadium. The Rays have now announced that they're not going to rebuild. So there's a big question about what reparations might look like in the city of St. Pete. So tonight's conversation should be very interesting. It might invite other people besides those who are in our assembly as well. Sharon Joy has one other announcement to make. Would you want to make that now?
So Emmanuel is offering us another treat besides lunch. Tomorrow evening, after we've gone through this incredible body prayer of the Cosmic Mass, back at the farm down the way, is a dinner, 5:30, in this amazing farm and kitchen. And Emmanuel would love anybody that wants to come to attend. So I told him I'd give him a count by lunchtime. And the cost is $45 for an amazing meal experience. And we sit in lawn tables, and it's no buffet, it's family together and conversations emerge. So it's another part of getting to know one another. So if you would like to go by lunchtime, please let me know. Thank you. Thanks, Russell.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, thank you for spending your day with us. Tomorrow is the Cosmic Mass from 2 to 4 o'clock at the Coliseum. And last night, I gave those who are here an assignment to bring 5 people with them. I consulted my crystal ball, and it said, no, your assignment is 7 people, because there are 7 days in the week. You know, you got to have a reason for everything. But please, please, come and put your body into your intentions tomorrow at the Cosmic Mass. You will be glad you came. Without further ado, I present to you a professor of geology from the University of Miami, and a dear friend of climate and the rest of us, Hal Wanless. Hal.
Thanks. Oh, time out. My voice isn't as strong as it used to be. Give me a second. How's that? Can you hear me okay? That's good.
Move the microphone up, maybe Chair Holly.
Where'd it go? How's that? Is that better? More?
I think the collar and the jacket are interfering.
Wait. Sorry about this. How's that? Is that any better? Yeah. Okay. A pleasure to be here. Before I start, I want to tell you I gave a talk at Nova University last Friday, a week ago, and I had half an hour, and they started 20 minutes late and gave me a long introduction, and I got up and I had barely started, and it said, somebody put up a sign that said 5 minutes. So I don't think that's going to happen today. What I want to do is try to talk to you about what we know about climate change. And I know most of you are deeply into this, but I have a first few slides to make sure everybody is on board, okay? And I'll try to stay out of your way, so just yell at me. This is a map, a graph from 1800 to near the present that shows how we have been burning fossil fuels, wood, peat, coal, oil, gas, and how it's increased. I put 1950 on as a little star because that's really when we started to control climate. And by burning fossil fuels, we're putting especially carbon dioxide into the atmosphere beyond the levels that were naturally there. And that's part of the story of global warming. The other part is that we have been increasing population, which is why, there's the star again, why we have had, we're right here now, why we have had such an increase in the use of fossil fuel. We're getting more efficient ourselves, but we're still burning more and more because there are more people. I was born, it's interesting, in 1942. There were just less than 2 billion people on the planet. Now there are 8 billion, and they think it's going to go to 10 or 11 billion before it levels out. So that's the reality. And most of you are a little older. I don't see any undergraduates here today. So you understand this. And because of this buildup of greenhouse gases, and just so you know, the greenhouse gases are things that capture the longer wavelength energy from the sun reflected back off the earth. And that longer wavelength is caught by carbon dioxide and methane and nitrous oxide and so on, and turned into heat, okay? And because of that, this is projected by mid-century. Because of that, we're going to have, over much of the United States, greater than 1 more month temperature greater than 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And for a part of the Southwest and much of peninsular Florida, we're going to have 2 months greater than 90 degrees. And I think we're already seeing a good part of that. The last couple summers in Miami have been an awful lot of days hotter than it used to be. And, but if this was the only problem, heating the atmosphere. All we have to do is stop burning fossil fuels, pull some of the CO2 out of the atmosphere, and it would all be okay again. But the problem is that this is a graph from 1970 or so up to 2009. Looks like it slid off the picture, but the red, or whatever color this is, that's the amount of extra heat that has stayed in the atmosphere. Remember in Paris, we were worried about not going above 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels. That's that. Part of the heat has transferred back to the earth, heating the earth. Part of it, white, has transferred back to the ocean. But over 90% of the heat that was produced, extra heat that was produced in the upper atmosphere, has transferred to the ocean, the shallower and the deeper ocean. And that's where the big problem is, because you all remember from high school physics or college physics that water has this great ability to take in and hold heat. And that's what it's doing. And the hot atmosphere is transferring heat back to the ocean. It's like you had a cold bathroom and you have a cold tub of water and you turn on the heater, the air heater. Well, nothing's going to happen for a while, but gradually, if you come back in a day or so with a nice hot atmosphere in your bathroom, you're going to have a warmer and warmer tub. And that's where we are, okay? And people say, scientists say, that if we stop burning fossil fuels right now, stop putting any extra greenhouse gases in the atmosphere would warm for another 10 to 30 years. But it's going to stay at that warmth for thousands of years because CO2 has a residence time of about 3,000 or 4,000 years. Okay? So we're creating a monster here. But that warm atmosphere, because the CO2 isn't going anywhere, that warmer atmosphere is going to stay warm and it's going to keep transferring heat to the ocean and stay warm and keep transferring heat to the ocean for centuries. Now, it's only been since about 1992 or 3 that we have started to see visible melt of the ice sheets because it took a while to get the ocean warm. And that's what's happening. Okay? And that's a little bit of sort of the background story. Because of this warm atmosphere and it warming the ocean, what we have seen in sea level rise, this is an attempt at global sea level rise, we have seen our rate of sea level rise from 1900 to about 2018. We have seen it increase here, converting that to 6 centimeters per century rate up to about 1930. That's just over 2 inches per century rate, okay? Then we increased because our warmed ocean, it actually expands as it warms. The water does. We more than doubled that to almost what would be equivalent to a rate of 15 centimeters, 14 centimeters. 15 centimeters is 6 inches. So we more than doubled the rate of rise. And then in the early 90s, we started to increase the rate of sea level rise farther because we had the warming expand the ocean, we had the melting ice, and you're being blinded by the light. But ice melt from the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets. And that's where we can get out of control. Ice melt is not a gradual linear thing. It accelerates. And that's what's happening, and we'll look at that in a little bit. And globally, right now, this is now over 6 millimeters a year. That's over 60 centimeters a century rate, okay? Now, and it accelerated from only a 6-inch to a 2 feet rate, but back here, that's how much global warming is changing our rate of sea level rise, and this is accelerating. Okay, this is Key West tide gauge, because it's different. This one was global, and what you want to look at an area like Tampa, St. Pete, or South Florida. This is Key West, which has the longest record. And it basically applies to both of our areas. And what it is a little faster. This area in here was a little faster than what was it, 14 millimeters. Now, this area here from 2006 on is at 8.8 millimeters. That's almost 9 millimeters, which is 90 centimeters per century, which is over 3 feet. And we have a bigger rate because we are a regional area that's influenced not by a sinking landmass, but we're influenced by changing currents. Okay? There are two really amazing things. The first one is that, we'll get to that in a minute, I guess. Before we do that, South Florida, I don't know what you've had in Tampa, but St. Pete, but Miami, Fort Lauderdale, we've had over a foot of sea level rise since the 1930s. For the globe, it's been about 8 or 9 inches. So we're having a faster sea level rise rate, which we should. And I think it's probably similar for here. And here's the Fort Lauderdale picture. These are because this is like climate change already happening. This is just high tide on Fort Lauderdale Beach. They built a wall here to try to keep the water out of A1A. And, but that's what's happening. Now, projecting the global rate, don't use the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They are not incorporating what's happening in Antarctica and Greenland. And so they have rates of 2, maybe 3 feet by the end of the century. Now, we're already at 3 feet, 2 or 3 feet, and it's accelerating. We're only here. The NOAA has put out in 2012 and 2017 projections for the future. They had 6. The lower 3 I took off because they're like 3 feet or less by the end of the century. We're going to be well above that globally. So I put on these, which could be at maybe 5 feet by the end of the century, or maybe a little over 8 feet. And the reason these are different is that we don't exactly know how fast ice melt of Greenland and Antarctica is going to happen, okay? But it is happening, and it is accelerating. That's understood. So just globally, we could be at 2 feet by 2046. That's 20 years from now. Wow. That's amazing. It could be a little longer, but we will get there. So this is global. Now, if we want to turn that into our regional area, there are 2 things we have to think about. One is this current that comes through here and around the corner becomes the Florida current and then the Gulf Stream when it goes through some other stuff here. But this is an amazing current. This is like 5 times all the world's rivers flowing north, east of between Miami and Bimini. And when a current is flowing in the northern hemisphere, it tries to turn to the right. And because of that, the water has piled up in the main Atlantic Ocean over here. And just going from Miami to Bimini, the ocean level rises about 1 meter, okay? So, and this is for a variety of reasons projected to slow down, and it's starting. And when that slows down, well, this Gulf of whatever you want to call it. is that's a good name, whatever you want to call it, is on the left side of this current, as is Miami and all along the coast here. And that's a much smaller mass of water than the Atlantic Ocean. And so if this slows down, basically it's going to be rising sea level here. And this is projected to be, as sea level rises this century, maybe 15 to 25% addition. Okay? So if you had 5 feet, you'd have an additional 25 feet. Okay? Foot and a quarter or so. Sea level rise. And there's another one. And this one is, when I first heard it, I said, yeah, whatever. It's called redistribution of mass. But when you think about it, masses have an attraction to our water. The moon and the sun go around and they create our tides, right? Far away, but a big mass. Well, Greenland and Antarctica ice are big masses, okay? And they pull the water toward it, like shown in the way you see in the left diagram. So here's the ice sheet, and the water literally pulled toward it. So it's sitting there, so this isn't like the moon moving around. As the ice melts, there's less mass there, so the water goes, there's a light blue line here, if you can see it, so the water goes down, okay? And there is a video, time-lapse thing you can find on a NASA site. And what this is 11 years between 2002 and 2013. The change in the ocean level because of ice melt. And you can see around there's a lowering of water. This is lowering of water. And the deep red is over this period of time. Because it all starts out as sort of this neutral. In 2002, everything's this color. So this is the change relative to 2000. And you can see a dropping of maybe 4 centimeters here in that 13-year period. You can see a little bit starting over in a few areas in Antarctica, on the West Antarctic ice sheet. But Greenland, look at it. It's 4 or 5 centimeters down in this 10-year period. And the areas like this part of Africa, all of the area we're associated with, are almost 5 centimeters up in that period of time. And we originally were going to add maybe 20% to the global sea level rise because of this through the century. But the scientist out at the University of California, Irvine, says, no, Miami should add about 52%. So that means if you have a 5-foot rise of sea level, you're going to have a 7.5-foot rise of sea level. This is real. And this is, there are other places that are sinking or rising. We're sitting here. Most of Florida is sort of just sitting here on this scale. But that's the big one we have to worry about, in addition to more water in the ocean. So what we can do is take that diagram I showed you a minute ago and just stretch it out a little bit. This one I gave 15% for change flowing of the Florida current and 52% for the redistribution of Earth's mass. And that takes what was a 5 foot to 8.2 feet rise. I don't know why the right side is cut off. 14 feet here. I have the 3 diagram lines on, you can barely see, but if we have rapid ice melt, this could be 2 feet, not by 2046, but 2039, or maybe a little later. This could be 3 feet by 2048. This could be 6 feet of rise. That's not even 50 years away, 1968. It's amazing. I always like to look within a mortgage cycle, because you think if you buy a house, you want to be able to sell it. Well, this is margin. Okay? So, that's the problem. Now, looking at South Florida, Southeast Florida, here's Miami-Dade County with today, 2, 4, 6, 8 feet. The northern one is Broward County, Fort Lauderdale. And I want you to look at something, because Miami-Dade at 6 feet, there's still a lot of land left, though it's not very high above sea level. At 8 feet, it's mostly disappearing. But Broward County, it's getting really iffy. So much of the county, by 4 and definitely by 6 feet, it's over. Neat.
10 million. 10 million. Broward, Miami.
Yeah. Yeah. The higher parts of Tampa we may come. Or Orlando. Or we may go to Nebraska. Who knows? Get away from the ocean. Jim Hansen is our leading, he's getting older, but he's our leading climatologist, atmospheric climatologist. And he says sea level rise of 5 meters is by 2100 is very expected, which is like, what, 17 feet or something. And he uses the term amplifying feedbacks. These feedbacks are things that speed up or slow down, amplifying things, speed up whatever you're talking about. And find feedbacks of ice melt. Ice sheet disintegration is necessarily highly nonlinear. And he suggests we could have a 5-meter rise by 2095 by just doubling, sort of Ponzi scheme style, every decade the sea level rise. And if we had 1 millimeter per year by somewhere between 25 and 2015, we could end up with this 5 meters. Now, this is just calculation. We're running ahead of that, just looking at Greenland. Okay. Here's a map where the red parts don't come out very well. Anyhow, in 2000, this is from the mass over Greenland. And you can see the buildup of mass in the winter and loss in the summer, and buildup of loss. And this is measured by what's called the GRACE experiment, or the GRACE satellites. It's a pair of satellites that measure mass over a pixel. And it goes around and around and around. And it can measure change through time. So this is measuring all the pixels under Greenland from 2002 to 2012. This satellite went down, I think, in 2016, and they have something that sort of replaces it, but not as well. And anyhow, the loss for 2003 was about 175 gigatons, and the loss for for 2010 was about 350 gigatons. So that more than doubled, and that's almost a millimeter. If you want to remember a number for thinking of sea level rise globally, 360 gigatons of ice or water thrown into the ocean will equal 1 millimeter of sea level rise, okay? Which sounds very small, until you keep doing it until you accelerate. So here we went from under 0.5 millimeter, just from Greenland ice melt, to almost 1 millimeter, remember, 362 degrees, within 7 years. That's what, and you can see that the amount of mass on Greenland is decreasing and the curve is steepening down. And there's a little blip here where the ocean adjacent cooled for a few years, and then it got steep again. If we want to look in the past and say, well, we're in the Ice Age, 18,000 years ago, CO2 in the atmosphere, naturally, was about 180 parts per million. After the Ice Age was over, we were in the warm period at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. CO2 levels naturally had increased to about 280 parts per million. And that's been going on, I'll show you a diagram in a minute, for the last million years, up and down, up and down. Ice Age, 180. Interglacial, about 280. We took over, and it's gone from 280, this is us now, putting CO2 in the atmosphere, 280 to 380 to about 423 right now. We've more than doubled, okay? And when we were at 400 parts per million, which was in the Obama administration, if we look in the past to see last time we were above 400 parts per million, what was sea level? Well, it was about 70 feet, about 20 feet above present level. It's serious. That's about 3 million years ago, 4 million years ago when that happened. Nothing's really changed in nature of Earth to say that's weird. No, that's where we're headed. That's what we have done. That's what we're putting in motion. Okay? And this is Florida with about 21 meters, 70 feet sea level. And a number of people have pointed this out in Miller, but there's another, Jason Locke. Okay. We started measuring CO2 back in 1958, International Geophysical Year. When the first people at Scripps started measuring on Mount Lowell the CO2 levels, and you can see the summer-winter fluctuations, but you can see what's happened since 1958 to CO2 levels there, and it's pretty representative of the world. And it's the only longer term, at least the 1958 level we have of CO2. You still hear me with this thing? Okay. Good.
It needs to be closer to your mouth.
Okay, how's this?
Sorry.
Well, try to talk a little louder. But you can see that CO2 levels have increased, and out from 310. Remember, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, 780, 750, 850 years ago, 1750, 1850, CO2 was about 280. So we've increased, and we're now up at about 423 to 2025 off this drop right there. But you can see it increase, and it's also picking up speed. And I wanted to see if there was any trend. The only trend is somewhere in here where it tries to level out a little bit for some reason, but then it picks up and speeds up. And again, this has a lot to do with population. And it has a lot to do with us not getting off burning fossil fuels. Simple as that. But I want to point out three things. When the Carter administration, they first asked if climate change was real. Is it serious? Is it urgent to do something? Is it going to be hard to do it? And the answer to all those was yes. And they said, and Exxon was involved as a real contributor. And both the oil companies and the government said, well, let's wait a couple of years till the economy's better. Well, we've waited over 40 years now. Okay? And we're still talking about, they were talking about having maybe a carbon tax to help encourage people to get off. But we're still talking about the carbon fee. Okay? And, but at that time, CO2 levels in the atmosphere were just over 340 parts per million. And in the past, when it was at 340, sea level was about 10 meters higher. So we already were screwed before we even started doing anything or thinking about doing something about it. Okay? And here's where we passed 400 during the Obama administration, when in the past sea levels were about 20 meters high. Okay? So when I give a talk, people think, can you sleep at night with this problem? No, we've had 40 years to worry about it. I can't worry about this, but I can try to share it before we start to do something. Let me show you one of the problems we have in coastal areas. Here's, I'm sorry, you're over here on this map, but this shows the Everglades. The original Everglades and the Everglades after we drained it, put canals in, and other things, and it lowered the water levels down here off Miami about 7 feet, the water level. And now we had land we could build on, but it was too low, so we had to build it up. So here's a wonderful picture of the Miami River, which is right here, with the waterfall coming out of the Everglades into the Miami River until they cut canals and blasted this to drain it. That was in the early 20s. Notice the stars, and they go all the way up to your area. I'll show you in a minute. The way we have figured out how to live, not just in South Florida, but all over the world, is take low-lying freshwater or saltwater swamps and knock them down and add some sediment so you're up to about 6 feet of sea level elevation. And here's a typical picture of Broward County, where Fort Lauderdale is. And all these canals and lakes and things are to get sediment to put on the land to build it up to a level you can build on. Okay? To about 6 feet. Of course, that could be mud. It could be on organic soil, peat. And through time, those can settle down. And so when we look, this is Broward County, and this is an amazing picture. Not representing the real estate companies here, but yeah, that's where I gave this talk last Friday. I know that. But you can see, this is at 6 feet of sea level rise. You can see this is gone. All this is filled, and a lot of the areas out here are on mangrove, and it's gone too. Broward County is totally built on fill. Drain the Everglades, build it back up to 6 feet. Unbelievable. Okay. I took a look on Google Earth, and this is northeastern St. Petersburg. Here's the La Quinta we were planning to stay in last night. We have a small cat. It's the only La Quinta in the United States that doesn't accept pets. So. We stayed somewhere else. They kindly showed us to a nice place somewhere over here that could take pets. So that's this street. This street. But you can see, And I don't know if some of this was land that was not really filled, not small. But this is, you can see this was obviously mangrove or salt mine. And that's the areas that you're living in St. Petersburg, that are less than 6 feet elevation. In our area, and I think to some extent in your area, you live on very porous limestone. And so the Dutch came to, they're trying to help everybody so they get money so they can help themselves. And they were eager to help keep Biscayne and Miami Beach and Miami and build levees to protect us. They're very good at that. But they didn't realize we were on very, very porous limestone. And you can build a levee, but as sea level goes up, the water's just going to come right up through, okay? So we have a problem. We don't have a valid way to protect ourselves against rising sea level. We can build seawalls to protect against a high tide or maybe a small storm surge, but not against the overall rising water. Okay, 3 pictures of give you a time perspective in the past. I was talking about the last interglacial about 120,000 years ago. That's really not very long ago. But sea level was up about 20 feet. That's where it was. And then we went from, gradually we worked from that interglacial to the glacial period, and its maximum stayed about 18,000 years ago. Sea level was about over 420 feet lower than present level. Because stuff from the atmosphere would snow on the land and it wouldn't melt. So we had these huge glaciers, huge ice sheets over North America and elsewhere. And that took water out of the ocean. And then the important part is to projecting the future. We went from here to here in that 18,000 years, where we are today. How did we go there? Well, that's a whole separate talk. But the important thing is many of us have been working on it. So here's 18,000 years ago, and here's today. And the whole way, it's a series of rapid rises of 1 to maybe 10 meters sometimes, and then pauses. And every pause, we have all across the continental shelves of the world. We have old barrier islands, we have old beach deposits, we have old reefs that were growing happily, commonly build up, the reefs build up to sea level, and then all of a sudden they're just left behind by a rapid enough rise. So if you had a foot or so rise on your barrier islands, you could probably have enough energy to migrate the barrier island landward. But these were all too fast. Even at the end, the ones we worked on toward the end were maybe only about a meter rise, but they happened within 100 years. Okay. The point of this diagram is, from everything we have studied about coming out of the last ice age, in a world that's warming, in a world with ice, what you have is pulses of rise as some ice sheet sector disintegrates. And then a little pause, and so on. That's our only guidance as to the future. And most projections are not. They're just thinking a la-di-da gradual rise. It's not going to be that. The final historical diagram, this looks over the last 400,000 years to the present. And this is CO2 levels up to about 280, down to 180, up to 280, interglacial glacial. See, we worked our way down into the glacial and we shoot out. We worked our way down into it. Here we are at 420 some feet below present level. And then we're up to here at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. This is the the natural fluctuation in CO2 that drove over 120 meters lowering the sea level and then rise, okay? That's natural, how the Earth presents herself to the sun. There are 100,000, 40,000, 20,000 year cycles, and right now this 100,000 year cycle is dominating. This is sea level sort of correlating with that. And we have gone, as I pointed out, from since the Industrial Revolution, we've gone up from 280 to 423. And the real question is, looking at this diagram, what would you expect sea level to do? Nothing. No, you got your head buried in the sand. This is going to be dramatic. The rate of buildup of CO2 here is almost 200 times faster than the rate of CO2 buildup that drove this. They all look like steep lines here, but this is much faster. And it's taking time for the atmosphere to warm and the ocean. It's going to warm. It's going to warm dramatically. So here's the real question. And here's the ocean, the water transferring to the ocean. I showed you that in part generated an expanding ocean and then ice melt again. I have some diagrams I want to show you on what our future might look like. The real concern for your future is not a warming ocean. That's going to be a further one of the century. The real concern is melting in Greenland and Antarctica. Greenland started much faster. I must recommend you go to Greenland. It's the most beautiful place Lynn and I have ever been, I think. And also because of what you understand about climate change, the most disturbing. If you go to the Lewis Center. Plenty of places there. This is the white areas are high areas on the Greenland ice sheet. It gets up to over 10,000 feet in elevation, and the weight of the ice is pushing the land well below the sea level. But so in 2005, that was the extent of the summer ice melt there for a few days. In 2012, the first time Lynn and I went over there, we flew across and the water, the ice was glistening all the way across. It's not right. Well, they had 2 weeks where the whole ice sheet was melting, 98% of it. Unbelievable. Wasn't anticipated, but it's happened more and more frequently. And a couple of years ago, on the highest part of the Greenland ice sheet, somewhere around there, they had a huge rainstorm. Well, rain can really melt ice very effectively. They don't know how much rain, because there was no rain gauge because it never rained. So things are changing on the Greenland ice sheet. And you see rivers being melted into the ice sheet that are quite dramatic. And those are going eventually down what we would call sinkholes, they call moons. And those things take the water down to the base of the ice sheet where it lubricates the bottom. And that was a big concern over scientists. But that starts speeding up the movement of the ice sheet. Of course, it fractures up. There's an interesting study of modeling ice melt. If you have a big thing of ice and you warm it on top, it'll melt it in about 1,000 years. If you fracture it every 20 meters, you can do it in about a decade. So what's happening here is the meltwater is dribbling down and softening the ice and melting the ice and working its way down. And as the surface is melting, all the dust that was in the ice brought in by from the Gobi Desert and the black soot and brown soot, everything is accumulating on the surface, darkening the surface. So, you know, darker surface means more heat trapped rather than reflected. And this is a good picture because it shows how you can go and enjoy Greenland. When they have everything from hostels to 4-star hotels, the Arctic hotels, and everywhere there's ice moving out. And this is why Trump is so interested in Greenland, is that the year before, the edge of the ice sheet was here. It's melting rapidly, and it's exposing all this new rock that's full of all kinds of minerals and ores and things. That is everybody, every country is scrambling over this looking, because there's a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, so, and when you go, take along a friend who has a lot of money so you can charter a helicopter. They're probably about $8,000 an hour now, but that's okay. You can go and you can choose in advance where you want to go, and it's pretty cool. This is where we stopped here to look at a river flowing. Okay, briefly going to Antarctica. Hard to see this time. There are two. Somewhere here is water and somewhere here is land. But there are two things you want to keep an eye on. The Thwaites Glacial Outlet and the Pine Island Glacial Outlet. These are two outlets to the west end of the coast. If you melt all of Greenland, it would raise sea level about 23, 25 feet. If you melt all of the west Antarctic ice sheet, you'd also raise sea level about 25 feet. Okay? But the big concern is, I guess, the Thwaites more than the Pine Island, but both are melting. And what happens is we're getting warmer water, not your swimming water, but warmer water in around these areas, and it's coming in under the ice sheet and melting it from below. And as this happens, the weight of the ice in has pushed the land down. And so as it melts, it gets easier and easier for that warmer water to come in and do melting. And I might point out that ice under pressure is very strong, but ice under tension is not. And so as you detach from the bottom, these areas here, they can melt from below, but they commonly turn into like a stack of books on a table, and then all of a sudden the whole thing fractures and sprays out, okay? And so this rapidly will extend inland, and this rapidly will disappear, okay? And these are just some pictures of the Pine Island and the Thwaites Glacial Outlet. You can see the velocity that is quite significant in the elevation change. Thwaites Glacial Outlet, a good one to keep your eyes out. Okay, so I want to look at how our coastline is. Let's start with Peninsular Florida so we get up to your area. And I've started with Trinity Lutheran Church right here. I believe, according to Google Earth, we're about 35 feet elevation. So, bring your sleeping bags here. That's now, these are maps that Peter Harmon did from LiDAR and other elevation. Here we are with an 8 feet of sea level rise. And you can see the area north that I showed you earlier, up in the northeast, in trouble. And all of South Florida is in trouble. Marco Island, Naples, all that is in trouble. Santa all these areas are This only shows relative to elevation change. This area would be gone, this part due to the wetlands and the area that would be gone. A lot of these areas are gone. That's 8 feet. 16 feet, well, it looks like it's mostly gone here. You're still okay. And that, people do that. Oh, my house is still here. Yeah, but you can't get there. There's no infrastructure, there's no garbage pickup, there's no electricity yet, and so on. Yeah. So this becomes a problem. And here, we are at 24 feet. And there's been a huge sudden stepping back of the coast. I'm going to back up through just so you can see them, see what changed. Just look at the St. Pete area. Watch how it gets smaller and smaller. Deeper areas. Unbelievable. That could happen this century or certainly the next. I'm not going to tell you what seal is going to be this century, because we don't know how fast these pulses are going to be. But they're going to be pulses. And we're at the very beginning of them, just very beginning. And here you can compare it a little off with what you can see. The areas left are here, some parts of Kansas. Maybe. I'll just run through Miami-Dade and Broward, Coral Gables is here. Turkey Point Nuclear Power Plant, Miami International Airport, on fill from the old Miami River wetland. Here's Fort Lauderdale Airport. Here's this whole fill. That's 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet. It's interesting because, there's quite a bit of land left. Well, yeah, but whatever is lost by 8 feet was less than 2 feet above sea level at this point. So there's 8 feet and there's 6 feet. So most of that land wasn't built there. And I've got the 8 feet there. You can see how all of Broward County and all of Western and all of like Doral and places like that here they're all still. Okay, 8 feet, and if you want to go to 10 feet, amazing. Susan, looking, right? Your house was flooded by?
Yeah, it's at 11 feet.
11 feet elevation. Well, we have a house in Coral Gables at 9 feet elevation. And we're inland, but it's like, why are we living there? That's a problem. And a few years ago, people in Naples were sure this didn't have anything to do with them. So several of us gave talks over there to try to, no, this applies to you too. So here's Naples with a 6 foot rise of sea level. Okay, it's just as vulnerable as everywhere else. And I don't have a picture like this for your area. But you can get one. And what we need to do now is start thinking about what we want to preserve. We're just putting this off because of our other emergencies. Focus. But when you think about it, you can already go fly fishing on the mall at certain high tides. Really nice fish. And that's because Tiber Creek came all the way up to there. And this is just fill land where the Smithsonian, there's a lot of it, just like everywhere else. Where's the cat? So these are areas that presently are flooding during heavy rains or extreme high tides. And they're already flooding into the basement of some of the Smithsonian buildings. Is that where we want this stuff? That's the stuff I guess we value as people. And that brings up a broader thing that we need to start doing several things. We need to start cleaning the land before it's inundated. Nobody ever talks about it. We need to start saving it, and you can read through this list as well as I can. Things we don't want to lose. And why aren't we planning to relocate the Smithsonian? It's just in the wrong place. You know, that's the wrong place. It's a lovely place. And we should plan for the rapid reconstruction and resettlement of large population groups, like us in South Florida, and you in Northeast Petersburg. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen all at once, and it may happen when the people from Phoenix and other places that are hit by different kinds of global warming move. And probably most importantly, we need to think about maintaining agriculture functionality and distribution. Most of the deltas worldwide are less than 6 feet of sea level rise. Everywhere the river just plays out at the edge of the ocean, and it immensely, this is the Guanabara River Delta near the orphanage that I had for a while, and now running on its own. But this is, it's just solid in agriculture. Where's it going to relocate to? These are serious questions, especially with the supposed increasing population. So we have a choice of making this a progressive, orderly process. Planning. Real planning, not talking about planning, in which there can be planning and help for the respective communities and preparing the areas we're going to move to. For college kids, I think that's a great profession, preparing communities for all of us coming. Who do you want? What kind of business do you want? What areas do you need to preserve, and so on. And if we don't do all this planning, we risk catastrophic chaos. Large number of dislocated Indians, maybe others, and polluted new wetland and shallow marine environment. Here's one of our 145 feet high mountains in South Florida, right in the mangrove swamp. Here's our Turkey Point nuclear plant, where they store the spent rods there because we don't have a permanent place to put them. So the choices are. Thank you very much.
We have about 5 minutes, and so questions, not comments. Linda.
Is anybody paying attention to this in Washington? You can do something about it, or are they all ignoring it? Repeat the question, please.
Well, Susan and I were talking about this earlier.
Just a second. The question is, who's paying attention in Washington?
And the answer is, Susan and I were talking about this, Rick Scott knows about it. We've talked to him about it. Our Secretary of State knows about it. Our President has to know about it. And as Al Gore says, it's an inconvenient truth. There are other things to do first. In fact, with the voting population, it's not very high on the agenda. And I go to Austin, Texas, and people say, is this climate thing important? Because it hasn't affected them yet. You know, if you're in Phoenix or somewhere, yeah, the heat is starting to hit them. And coastal areas, no. But, and the conservatives that own beautiful Bear Island buildings, no. So, go ahead.
Dave.
Can you speak to the issue of the gradations of change, like Miami, for example, like saltwater intrusion, maybe only 1 or 2 feet makes a difference versus 6. Florida Keys, the airport's already been shut down, had to be re-engineered 20 of the time because of sea level rise. $50 million infrastructure change in Miami Beach with just 2 feet of road. I mean, we're getting to the point where Jerome Powell says there'll be areas like Miami that are insurable, which means this collapse is going to happen a lot faster than the.
And there are a lot of areas you can't get a 30-year mortgage in Miami-Dade County anymore. Some areas, not a lot, because there's a risk. And with 2 feet of sea level rise, Miami-Dade and Broward will have lost their freshwater resources. So we'll be pumping it from somewhere or leaving. Understand that if you're at 5 feet of sea level rise, let's go 4 feet of sea level rise, some of the big tides, you get wet. And certainly there's no drainage from a rainstorm because there's no slope to anywhere anymore. So we're very close at 4, 5, and 6 feet of not being livable, even though all these areas I showed you.
Back here, well, last question, then we have to move on.
If you don't have restraint or wisdom, I always heard about peak oil, that we were at the maximum peak oil level.
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Well, we were. And there are a lot of books written about it. And we were starting to teach about it. And then some wonderful petroleum scientists discovered fracking. And fracking is when you go, you see, usually you have a source rock, which is a organic rich shale, and that will, with depth, with temperature, mature into oil or gas. And that will hopefully gradually seep out, because it's not very permeable, into a porous area with a cap on it to hold it. And we drill in and suck the oil out of that. Then they discovered fracking. That's going into the source rock, the not very permeable shales that are rich in oil and gas. And you go in under pressure and explode it, and then shoot down a whole bunch of sand from Wisconsin. There's one quarry that they use certain size sand. And that holds the fractures open, and then they can suck out from the source rock. That's given as unlimited, for the foreseeable future, oil and gas. That's what happened. And of course, fracking, as you know, has its own problems because it fractures things, and methane and other gases leak out, causing problems.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be transitioning now to our next hour. The schedule is, 10:30 set of workshops, then 11:30 a set of workshops, to 12:30, and then you can do lunch upstairs, or you can go in the neighborhood, and then we come back at 2. So in here is, following up soon, is Susan Glickman on energy policy. In the lounge called Horn Hall, just off to the side here is Richard Montoya. Where are you, Richard? Richard here, maybe he's over there. We're talking about SELF, which is the Solar Energy Loan Fund. So important information for being able to go solar. And then upstairs is Ellen Siegel. Where are you, Ellen? Talking about communicating to people who don't think it's a voting matter yet, the stuff that Hal has just talked about. Yes. So,
I'll be here for about 40 minutes, and then I have to head back. So if you want to talk, I'll be sit right here till Susan kicks me out.
Yeah, Susan's not going to kick you out.
Oh, I won't kick you out.
Yeah. So there are folks out there, if you need to find the restrooms, can help you find the restrooms, but have a great